2 is Superhuman by Dave Asprey. This book I read over the summer, and my mom actually read it immediately after me as well, as I was living with her during that time. I'd been vaguely familiar with the Bulletproof diet, and also I've consumed a lot of Bulletproof Radio, which is Dave Asprey's podcast. This book here is about anti-aging, which seems like something that should be sort of irrelevant to someone like myself who is in his early 20s. However, this is certainly not the case. The anti-aging principles put forth in this book, which I simply consider to be optimal health practices, are immensely valuable to anyone of any age, no matter how young or no matter how old as well. Throughout reading this, I often would imagine my 95-year-old grandfather or my own father, who's in his 60s now, reading this book and getting so much benefit from it as well, even, well into your older age, right? Like, let's say you're in your 90s like my grandfather. I couldn't help but think of him throughout reading this book. My biggest takeaway, besides all the actionable steps laid forth here, was simply our perspective of human lifespan is pretty much flawed. Given the science backing the principles in this book and the knowledge that a lot of what our general population eats and the lifestyle habits that most of us have are actually subpar, we collectively make some pretty bad decisions for our health. With all of that in mind, right, we almost exclusively assume that since human beings have always lived to around the ages of anywhere like from 50 to 70 to 100, and 100 sort of being the max, that is the norm and that's going to be unchanging anytime soon. Well, Dave makes the very convincing case that the human lifespan should be able to increase to at least 180 years old, give or take a few decades or so. 180 actually being precisely Dave's own aim for his lifespan, to reach 180 years old. That alone for me, and for my mom for that matter, has been the greatest takeaway, that our perspectives of human lifespan are rooted in a collectively non-optimal diet and lifestyle, and that if we follow the science and research and exercise a certain level of discipline, our lives should not know limitations of less than 100 years of life on Earth. That, ladies and gentlemen, was my biggest takeaway from this book. From reading this now on forward, I no longer just look at my life as living from now to 100 years old. Given that everything goes well, of course, anything can always happen, right? But overall, having that perspective shift that, hey, I'm living in a time period where we have the science and knowledge to back up a potential to live to be well over 150 years old, has just been a really, really important perspective shift. And I don't think it's a coincidence that this came to me during this year of the pandemic, where we're all sort of being forced to analyze how we live our lives in terms of health. Also, just in general, there were a lot of great practical takeaways for diet, exercise, and some other easily accessible biohacks. Some of them, I've put straight into action, like some of the supplement recommendations and just other things. I now wear the True Dark glasses before bed. Right? Looks pretty stylish in the video, as well as, I definitely want to buy an Oura Ring, which is a device that, tracks more than just your heart rate variability, but overall how you're sleeping, how much REM sleep you're getting, all that sort of stuff. Those were some great ideas that I got from this book that I'm going to be putting into action to hopefully, of course, increase my lifespan, but doing things that help you live a long time, also help you live a better time in the now, because you're less inflamed, you have more focus, your brain will be working better, all that sort of stuff. There's also some great storytelling throughout this book as well, and it was not so much a dry read, despite a lot of reference to complicated science and use of big words that I'd not come across before. Overall, this was a very great intro to anti-aging and to optimal health in general.